I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is a award-winning author, no other than Mr. Dan McCroy.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Dan, and can you please introduce yourself?
I'm Dan McCroy. I've been writing for a number of years about different subjects that intrigue me. And this book that we're going to be talking about this evening, Capitalism Killed the Middle Class 25 Ways the System is Rigged Against You, started out as a memoir and turned into something else.
Wow, sounds interesting, Mr. Dan. What age did you realize that you're good in writing?
What I realize is that in a lot of ways, the system is rigged against people to achieve greater things. Well, I started out as a memoir, and I realized that people don't know who the heck I am. So why would they want to read a book about me? So I started looking at things that are in the staring the next two generations in the face. Things like the gig economy, universal basic income, those kinds of things. And I realized that I needed to warn them so that they would be equipped to take care of those things when they came about.
Who are your favorite authors that influence you the most?
Hmm. I don't know that anybody influenced me because I was so busy trying to find my own voice. I didn't want to be like anybody else. So I have favorite authors, Isaac Asimov, a lot of science fiction people, but I don't write a lot of science fiction. So go figure.
Okay, so if you describe your writing, what is it?
My writing is an opportunity for me to connect with people out there who are wondering: does anybody think like I do, or does anybody ever consider these two particular topics? And so that's I try to be their voice.
Who encouraged you to do your writing?
I guess my teacher in fifth grade, because I was 11 years old, he said write a story about some legend that's not necessarily that you've made up. So he liked my story so much he read it to the class. So I was hooked then.
So that the spark of being a writer.
Yes.
So let's talk about your book, Capitalism Killed the Middle Class. How did you crafted it?
I decided early on the kind of subjects I wanted to tackle, besides being a memoir, like I said, I wanted to tackle some of the stuff that's been around for ages, like racism and what I call the criminal injustice system, because it's definitely rigged against some people and not so much for other people. And so then I got a friend of mine who is a well-known um, labor cartoonist. I said, "Can you illustrate my individual chapters?" And he agreed to do that. And he said he wanted to before he would uh, before he would commit himself. He said he needed to read a couple of chapters. So I sent him a couple of chapters, and he said, "This book is too important for me not to be involved."
Interesting, Mr. Dan. What behind the title of your book, Capitalism Killed the Middle Class?
I think that if things keep going the way they are, that the middle class is going to go away. It'll just be like in Mexico, a wealthy class and a very poor class of people with nothing in between. So what we have to do is we have to find a way to protect the middle class and not only survive but to thrive. And I've since I've been talking about this book for the last 4 years, I've come up with a way I think we can actually overcome the cards that are stacked against us.
So, can you define what is capitalism?
Capitalism is it's like fire and like electricity. It has its good points and its bad points. It can be used for good or it can be used for evil. And somehow this country with these um, mega corporations, they found a way to make it evil. And my job, I think, is to swing the pendulum back the other way.
Very well said, Mr. Dan. And can you define also what is the middle class?
Well, the middle class, I go into a whole chapter of that in the book because a lot of people have different definitions for the middle class. I'd say it's anybody that makes enough money um, to get by, I guess. So somewhere between, let's say, 70,000 and 250,000, because I think that Obama and Bush both said that anybody that makes 250,000 or more would have to be classified as wealthy.
Interesting indeed.
Yeah.
If you connect capitalism and the middle class, where can you connect?
The connections are the middle class has been lied to for years, for decades, that the way to prosperity is by raising yourself on your own bootstraps. And that just is not true anymore. They have more in common with a union leader than they do with a CEO, and they don't seem to realize that. Everybody thinks if I just hang in there, I can become rich. And that's simply not true.
Before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening in Iraq. According to my Apple chart, I got number 27. Thank you, Iraq, for listening to this podcast. In United Republic of Tanzania, number 75. Nepal at number 27. Egypt at number 31. Pakistan at number 58. Zambia at 71. Cameroon at 81. South Africa 135, Mongolia at 165, Ireland at 173, Hong Kong at 175, Libya at 184, Algeria at 187, India at 213, Turkey at 215, and Jordan at 236. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world like Mr. Dan McCroy. So, Mr. Dan, what is the best highlight of capitalism killed the middle class?
Well, there's something called the Powell Memo in 1971. Lewis Powell wrote something for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce saying that he could control the conversation and the priorities of our nation by ignoring, by shutting up the Vietnam vets that were coming back and saying we're only over there for money. And so he wrote this 19-page memo, and they've been able to control the masses ever since for the last 50 years. And I've got a plan to change it so it's working for the working class and the middle class. So stay tuned.
If capitalism will kill the middle class, what other reform that you recommend instead of capitalism?
Social democracy. It's you can call it capitalism if you want, but it's more robust oversight of big business, so that they're not able to uh, race have a race to the bottom as far as sending our jobs offshore. So if we had more control over the corporations, they wouldn't be able to hurt the American people instead of helping them.
So comparing before, let's say, 18th century to the 21st century system of capitalism, what's the big difference?
The big difference is that we've allowed corporations to be termed as people. So then with that, they have certain rights, like if you happen to be a rich person or a rich corporation who's acting as a person, you can spend as much as you want to get people. So that sort of takes us regular folks out of the picture as far as our leaders go.
Yes. Very well said, Mr. Dan. And before we go on, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our third season with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chef in one of the best restaurants in downtown Toronto. And please do listen to our latest episode. We talk about focaccia. Focaccia, people, one of the trademark of Italian cuisine. So please do listen. Food 101 plus one more, our Food 101, Volume 1 until Volume 7 is out. It's all about how to create food delicious. It's Volume 1, Basics, Volume 2, Fundamentals, Volume 3, Essentials, and Volume 4, Greek Cuisine, and a lot more. Available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. So, Mr. Dan, capitalism killed the middle class. What else you can say about it?
Well, now that you made me hungry, I can say that it needs to be have a lot more oversight so that we can make sure that it doesn't hurt the American people. And there are ways to do that that we're not doing now, and they're in the book.
So, what are your preparation in writing this book?
I was a union president, so I saw a lot of people get fired for no apparent reason, and so I was looking out for regular working folks and trying to find a way to bring them the dignity and respect we all deserve.
Okay, so can you give an insight or example for those injustice that we're gonna say capitalism is so bad for the middle class?
Well, one of the things that we could do, and some cities are starting to do that already, is go to a form of bail where there's no money exchanged. If you're not at a risk of leaving the country or a risk to people around you, there's no reason why they need to make you pay a lot of money, especially if you're a poor person. You should be able to get out on your own recognizance. I think that's a major step in the right direction.
So, what is your advice for those people that experience those injustice?
They should first read the book because there's a lot of answers in there, and they should get themselves educated in any way they can about how they can band together to fight injustice. Because together we can do a lot more than separately.
Can you give us an example what you're gonna do first when you experience injustice at work?
I'm going to go to my union steward and say this is what's happening, and make sure that it's well documented, and then have them pursue it. And if they don't pursue it to the extent that I like, then I have the ability to go to a higher authority and have them battle it for me. So there's always ways to seek justice and ways to find it. So you just have to be tenacious.
Let's talk about writing academic book and writing a poem. What's the big difference?
A big difference. You've got to say so much in a poem with just a few words, and so you in that point though that's where they what they have in common, because if you use the right word, you can paint a picture with just a few words, whereas with sometimes with the book you want to expand on it a little bit, and sometimes those picturesque words don't do enough justice to convey the idea you're trying to get across. I've written both, and I enjoy both for their individual merits.
How does it feel that you won an award for writing a poem?
Uh, that was totally unexpected. But it made me decide that, gee, maybe I am a poet. So, because at that point I had always called myself a poet, a fake poet.
Fake poet.
Yeah.
So, what do you enjoy the most, writing a poem or academic book?
Probably the academic book, because I didn't know I had it in me. A poem is just a fleeting moment in time, whereas an academic book requires a lot of research, a lot of thinking, and you have to ask yourself, how do I feel about this particular subject?
Oh, yes, indeed. But if you're given a chance or we given the option what to write, which one you're gonna choose?
Both. I don't let anything stop me. I've written poetry, I've written scripts, I've written academic books, I've written novels. So it's like I'm like a kid in a candy store. Just leave me alone and I'll get whatever I want.
Yes, indeed. So, Mr. Dan, what are your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
I've got a couple of more books I'm working on right now. One of them is about a gentleman named Leonard Peltier, who's a Native American who was wrongly imprisoned for killing two FBI agents in 1975. He's been in prison for 48 years. I'm writing a book to show him not as the cold-blooded killer that the FBI would make you think he was, but as a family man, somebody who's been separated from that family for much too long, and he needs to come home. And then the other book I'm working on is a parody. It's called Worst Case Scenario Election Night 2020, in which Trump declares martial law and locks up the Democrats, and the American Indians decide they want their country back.
Oh yes, good luck for your goals, Mr. Dan. I hope more books to come. Okay, Mr. Dan, can you please invite our listeners to buy all your books?
Definitely. Please take a look at Amazon or Barnes and Noble because they're there, and there's a lot to glean from them, and you'll learn something in the process.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Dan McCroy. Let's read one of his poem. It's award-winning piece, and Capitalism Killed the Middle Class. Let's support him and more books to come.
That's true. Thank you, Daniel.